This episode is sponsored by the IoT job site, the world's only dedicated space for applying for and advertising IoT vacancies across the world. Register now for job alerts or get in touch via let's talk at theiotjobsite.com.
Hello and welcome to the IoT podcast. I'm your host for today, Brad King-Taylor. I'm the head of UK business for Paratus People. Today we're joined by FYTA, and we have Claudia Nassif, who is the CEO and co-founder, and we have Sylvie Basler, who is the CMO and co-founder. So Sylvie, Claudia, it's great to have you on. Thank you very much. I suppose the best place for us to start, and for the listeners' benefit, if you can just give us a little introduction to yourselves, the background, how you ended up in the wonderful world of plant technology. And to be fair, it'd be good to know what actually prompted the business.
Yeah.
You want to start, Claudia?
Yes, well, thank you. Thanks a lot for giving us the opportunity to talk to you. We're very excited to be here. So my name is Claudia. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of FYTA. I'm actually an economist by training, so I have no tech background whatsoever, and have actually spent most of my career in academia and notably also at the World Bank, where I worked for over 13 years, mostly actually on conflict countries. So I advised governments there on economic reforms and similar. But I've been always very curious about plants and botany in general. So I love to read about them, love to grow them whenever I had the opportunity. And I've always been very fascinated about like how little we actually know about these green creatures that are literally like dominating our lives and actually giving us life, right? So when I decided to move out of the World Bank, I knew instantly that I wanted to do something that would actually allow me to learn more about plants and also share my passion. And gardening, specifically indoor gardening, seemed to be a very good starting point for me. So I started to create a few ideas around it, like the one about the plant health tracker, and later very quickly right after actually approached Sylvie with all of my ideas. Sylvie has been like a very long, very good friend of mine, and we've known each other since high school. And I also knew that she's very much into gardening, so I thought she might be a great person to partner up with.
Perfect. That leads lovely onto you then,
Yes.
Sylvie.
Hi everyone. I'm Sylvie, and my background couldn't be more different than Claudia's. I've spent the last 25 years in fashion. I've worked for large international fashion groups in the States, in France, and also obviously in Germany. And I started in design and product development. And then at some point, I was more interested in brand communication, brand strategy, and moved to marketing. And yes, then Claudia came up with this idea. She knew that I was quite a passionate gardener in and outdoors. And I really liked this idea about sharing knowledge, plant knowledge, but also giving people the possibilities to access gardens in an urban surrounding where gardening can be a challenge, because you basically have to take care of your plants indoors, and this is how it started.
Amazing. So you've effectively taken your passion and friendship and created a business out of it. I couldn't think of anything better, to be honest, because sometimes you've got to enjoy where you work. So if you can do that with one of your biggest hobbies, amazing. So it's a good insight into both of you. So it'd be good now to get a bit of an understanding on FYTA, what it is you do. I'm also pretty intrigued to know where the name comes from as well.
Yeah, so FYTA actually means plants. It's many people may actually even know phyto, which means plant or plant-related things. It's a Greek term, except that the Greeks actually pronounce it phyto, and phyta is just a plural. So FYTA means plants. And the name itself actually relates very much to our core mission, which is to connect people with plants and nature. So we actually strongly believe that actively growing plants and interacting with plants is a great way to experience nature and to learn more about plants, especially if you live in an urban setting and have very little access to nature in your daily life. But as Sylvie also pointed out, growing plants, especially indoors, can be super, super hard if you don't know how. Plants are very silent creatures. It's very hard to read the signals that they send. And moreover, plants' needs actually vary by species. And there can also be very individual depending on the environment in which the plants live or how the plants are being taken care of. So essentially, growing plants requires knowledge and it requires the right products. And this is exactly what FYTA essentially provides, together with a lot of creative ideas on how to share your life with plants and how to connect with other people who love plants.
Yeah, amazing. The thing I keep thinking about, and I think this is going to work with a lot of people, is I keep going back to the plants that I've got and my other half, and the difficulties that we found with like topsoil mold,
Yes.
or how to get around that sort of stuff. So I feel like knowledge, like you mentioned, is definitely a big part of that, but also care. And again, I go back to, obviously it's a passion of both of yours. So I think it really is going to have a big impact on a lot of people, and I think it's great. You have a range of products at the moment that work together to be able to track the plant health, and I know you've got the FYTA Beam. So it'd be good to get a bit more of understanding about that, which is I believe just a sensor effectively, and that can go and connect with the apps or that you work on.
Yeah, it's an IoT. It's a very sophisticated IoT fitness tracker for plants, if you like. So the FYTA Beam is indeed our core product. It's also like the product that brought us here to the IoT podcast. So it's exactly what you said. So it's a small sensor that measures a number of critical environmental parameters, and it also analyzes these parameters together with a slew of data from many different other sources. So and via an app actually tells you exactly what the plant needs, when it needs it, but also explains you how to take care of the plant through, let's say, tutorials or articles, and also tells you which products you can or need to use on your plant in order to keep it healthy. And obviously, you can then buy these products directly from an in-app store very seamlessly. So the FYTA Beam, in its core, is essentially the access point to an entire indoor gardening ecosystem that provides you with everything that you need to know and need to have in order to grow plants successfully at home. So it's like a garden center in your pocket, if you like, except, and this is where the data part comes in, it's hyper-personalized. It's hyper-personalized to the individual needs of your plants, and it's hyper-personalized to your interests in home gardening. So it's also a very new type of commerce, if you like. So it's the next level of commerce after mobile commerce. And some of it referred to as IoT commerce, which in addition to the regular data sources that other online companies use, also use data from connected devices to offer a much more compelling user and shopping experience.
Yeah, amazing. So that's effectively what sensors do, I guess, is take the data and help in some sort of way. And I feel like this is definitely something that I personally will be implementing. Well, not me personally. It'll probably be the other half on saying that, because she loves a houseplant, but fails to look after them. So if I don't water them or anything like that, then they don't tend to last very long. So I feel like this is definitely something that can play a big part in different lives. So alongside the FYTA Beam sensor and obviously how that works with the app, what other technologies are being implemented, and how is that innovating the way that people are looking after that?
Yeah, so on the hardware side, our plant sensor offers a number of USPs that other plant sensors that you currently can find on the market do not offer. I mean, at least not to end consumers. So we measure 4 variables, which is a lot. So soil moisture, soil fertility, temperature, and light. In the future, we will also be able to measure other variables as well. And we're using a proprietary technology in the way we're actually measuring soil moisture and fertility, which allows us to measure highly accurately at low cost. So unlike other plant sensors, we are also measuring light in a very different way. So we're actually analyzing the different light waves that allows us to analyze the way plants see and perceive light, as opposed to how we humans perceive light. So this is also like a very important USP. And our entire system is modular. So for instance, you can adjust it to the needs of the plants, while you can, for instance, it has detachable probe soils, so you can adjust like the FYTA Beam to the size of your plant, or you can depending on your preferences, either just connect via Bluetooth or buy like an optional Wi-Fi hub to it. And over time, the idea is also to expand the IoT hardware ecosystem to other products, like for instance, humidifiers. But this is in the future. Right now, we're actually developing like the tools that we need in order to analyze data. And the data is actually what is very, very important on the software side, right? Because we have developed, or we are developing self-learning algorithms that use the data from all of these different sources, like the sensor, user behavior, user input data, but also like data from photo recognition that we have integrated in the app, and a photo-based health check. And we take all of these data and basically use it so that our model learns over time um, what the individual needs of the plants are. So it's like, so what we do is that we analyze the data in relationship to the different stresses that the plant experiences at a very individual level. So we get a much more holistic understanding of the plant and the environment it lives in. And this is really entirely new. So, for instance, when you look at other technologies, we know a lot about how to grow plants in greenhouses. And there's a lot of technology that allows farmers to, or, supports like growing plants in greenhouses. But we have very little tools and very little data and understanding around how plants actually grow in a home environment. And this is what we are changing.
Yeah, amazing. You've touched on it ever so slightly, but agri-tech is huge at the moment in terms of a growing industry for sure. And one thing you learn, especially about doing the podcast and the people that you speak to, is IoT technology is ever growing. People are forever coming up with ideas from their own experiences, which I think touches on really well on what you're up to with FYTA at the moment. So looking at a side of the technologies, obviously you have your e-commerce store. So can you speak to us a little bit more about that, how that is differentiating your product in the market and kind of enabling your consumers more 360 use of your offerings and what you're doing at the moment?
Yes, this is the interesting part, because we have the hardware sensor and all the data on one side that gives you push notifications, and that really helps you to take care of your plants. And within the app, there will be lots of entertainment, but also edutainment on long terms who are planning to implement a community. So we really want to be there on all levels of the different solutions you're looking for in order to take care of your plants, and products will be a part of it. So we will expand the product assortment according to the different issues that the user is encountering. So if we see that it's air humidity that is damaging the plants, then we will work on a humidity sensor and maybe humidifier that can be monitored through your app. Same with light. If we realize that most plants have a light stress, then we would start to develop a light system. Again, you can monitor it through your app. But who knows, maybe we'll realize that what they really need is the right fertilizer. So we will implement a fertilizer in our assortment, but maybe it will be soil, or they will be complaining about, not being able to find the right pots. So we will develop plant pots with drainage holes. So this is basically how we will build the commerce according to the problems that the users will encounter.
Forever learning. And this is a conversation that we have quite a lot. I think that is the key, like forever learning, whether it's the device itself or us as people, about how we can adapt different technologies. And I think that's really good. And like the fact that you then were just listing off options that you had in terms of the soil, the light, that sort of stuff. And there's quite a lot of things out there you can connect to already. Like there's obviously smart light bulbs and that sort of thing. And so it can kind of all integrate, which is amazing. So I understand that the journey that you're on at the moment is relatively fresh, quite short in the tooth, if you like. I believe you launched in April. So it'd be good to get an understanding of where you are at the moment, what sort of the customer base you've got, and that you're reaching out to, and do you have plans to grow that customer base into different parts or? Yeah, it'd be good to get an understanding
Yeah,
of that.
sure. We are launching in May. So we've just made a couple of pre-sale campaigns starting in December. And it's really interesting because when, as you pointed out earlier, the idea of FYTA started out of a private or personal passion. And when we decided to make a business out of this, of course, we looked into market research, and this whole indoor and decorative plant trend is mostly driven by a very young user base, being, some of them below 25. So we are building our brand around a very young and fresh, plant loving user between 25, 30, 35. But what we have realized with our first pre-sale tests is that there is another customer out there who's really into our product. I would say 70% male, probably above 45, and really into plants, really into plants, but also, according to the questions we get, really into tech. Most of them already do have a smart home environment, and they're asking if they can implement the FYTA Beam in this environment and how it actually works together. And yes, so this is it's a very broad user base that we'll be having. Some of them will be interested in lifestyle and interior design, others in health and maybe vegan lifestyle, and then there is the tech guy who's really into plants but into tech as well.
Yeah. And I think the fact that you're reaching out to different things, and to be fair, when you mentioned the percentage of males, like my eyebrows raised, because you just don't expect that from my personal point of view, which I think is amazing. And is there plans to, obviously when you go around to like industrial places or different companies, plants you can see behind me, for instance, plants are always quite prominent. So do you have plans to potentially reach out to those sort of businesses that have pretty offices, if you
Yes,
like?
yes. We are thinking about this, and we might at some point. But for now, we're just reaching out to different people just in order to understand the pain points, because we do realize that the pain points in a hospital are not the same than the ones that you have in offices or maybe in a hotel or a restaurant. So right now we're looking at just finding out what the pain points are and see if we can make a business case out of it. And then maybe at some point we will reach out and build a B2B business.
Yeah, amazing. I think that's going to lead quite nicely onto the next question. I think we've touched on it already a couple of times, and I will touch on it. And most of the podcasts I do is learning and development, if you like it. So understanding what your product can achieve and then growing from there is probably a really good idea. Well, that leads us lovely onto the next point. Like I said, so the company and the technology in place, you two are in place with the passion and the drive. What is next for FYTA? Where are we expecting to see FYTA go in the next 12 months, for instance?
It's mostly product development, just, making sure that our sensor works and then building products around it. And it might be one or two other more tech products, but again, we might see that the need is somewhere else, that people need great soil or maybe more knowledge, more edutainment. So it's really about listening to what the users need and then react to that.
Yeah, and Claudia, to bring you back in as one of the co-founders, what is your overall goals? Probably slightly broad, but what is your main desire from this in the short term? Obviously, once the product development and stuff that Sylvie mentioned is done.
I mean, from a business perspective, or let's say our desire is that we would love to be like the very first touch point people think of when they think of plants. So we really like whenever someone actually wants to grow something indoors, whether it's being decorative plants or whether it's being herbs or anything else, edibles, and whenever they actually need something, that they think of us as the point or the one-stop shop, if you like, for everything that they need around plants. And we really would like to provide not just like the right products, but also really like the right experience and the right knowledge to do that. And it's for us also like fascinating, because it's also going to be the first time, like, let's say if you're going to sell soil or fertilizer, it's not just that we're going to sell it, but we can actually directly perceive and analyze like the impact that it has on the plant. So over time, we can, if it's like third-party products, we can actually like check and test like which of these products actually work best on our plants and can recommend them. And then, as Sylvie said, eventually maybe even like develop it ourselves if we feel like that the products out there are not good enough. And so it's really quite exciting. And so I think that with the data that we have, we can provide like a user experience that is quite unparalleled in the home gardening market. And so so our hope is that we're really going to be like the first touch point for home gardeners, hopefully in the world.
Well, from a personal perspective, and I'll be very honest with you. Obviously, I'm quite the sports person, so heavily drive around sport and stuff like that. And in the 20 odd minutes that we spent talking, you've gained a customer in me. Put it that way. I think what you guys are doing is very good, and being the non-green fingered, I'm the sort of person that's converted their lawn into fake grass, for instance. So being that non-green fingered, I think you guys are going to be able to help quite considerably in my household, especially. And I know for a fact I won't be the only one. Just to touch a little bit more on the customer base, are you just going to stick to European, or are you going global straight off the bat? What's the plans there?
We will start in Germany, Switzerland, and Austria, German-speaking countries. Our app will be in English and in German to start with. And then we want to expand in Europe. Probably the Scandinavian countries will be the easiest just because of the language barrier. But there is a huge market in France, Spain, and also in Italy. Lots of plant and garden loving people. So especially in France, we really would like to expand ASAP, depending, of course, on budget and yeah.
And the UK?
Yes, again, English speaking.
I'm
So
thinking from
UK
me.
is next.
Good. Well, that's everything from me, and I'm really excited about your product, like genuinely, to the point where I asked about the UK because I kind of want it myself.
I mean, UK customers,
So,
you can already,
yeah.
I mean, you can purchase it as a UK customers. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just from a marketing perspective that we are focusing on some of these markets first, but they're available to anyone who would like to purchase them. Please come visit us.
I will touch on that. I will touch on that again in a second because you can tell me how to do that. But it's a tradition on our podcast that we ask a question from the previous guest. So this time around was Francis Sapero, who is the director of vertical solutions at A1 Digital. He would like to know, where do you personally see AI being leveraged into innovative plant technology, which I think is a great question, and it'd be good to understand what you think.
So I think I mean, it's what I explained before. So through the combination between connected devices and mathematical models, we will actually gain like a completely new understanding of plants, and this will expand. So currently we actually do have like a cooperation with the Humboldt University, so where we work with researchers on trying to understand what stresses plants experience after they're being purchased, and how you can best react to them. So this is literally like testing the recommendations that are coming out of our model. But I think if we just think about this in a larger context, and also think about it like plant tech in general, sensors are going to become much more intelligent also with the time. So for instance, there's currently like this team of researchers that have developed like a sensor that you can directly like plug into a plant, like a very tiny microsensor, and that measures actually the metabolic processes that are within plants. And so this is obviously like, extremely edge technology. So this is not anything that is available for the next 10 years,
Yeah.
but it's sort of like fascinating, like how this is going to help us to understand what plants are, not just like what they do for us, but what they actually are and how they grow. And that's quite fascinating. And I think that's going to help us with a lot of like very big challenges that we have in the world, like including how to preserve and grow food.
Yeah, and it's a different world that we live in now, and it's going to be a different world that we live in 10 years, like you mentioned, in terms of all the technology that's coming out, quantum and all that sort of stuff. So good. Now to go back to where we were before. So if you can just give our listeners an idea of where to find you, your social medias, your website, how to order, that sort of stuff, that'd be good.
Sure. So our website is FYTA.de, FYTA.de. And this is where you can find even more information about us and about the product. And we also have integrated a web shop, so you can get the product there. And we are also on Instagram, on Facebook. We will start on TikTok anytime soon. Yes, of course, we have a newsletter, which is going to be fun. So feel free.
There we go. Perfect. Well, thank you so much. It was great to have you, and really looking forward to trialing the product myself, but also seeing where you can take the technology. I think it's amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.